Welcome, brave souls, to another descent into the Darkened Crypt. I am your host, Mr. Cornwell, and tonight we venture into the shadows of scientific impossibility, where ancient wisdom collides with modern technology in ways that challenge everything we thought we knew about our reality. Deep in the crypts of human understanding lie artifacts that defy explanation. Objects that whisper secrets from civilizations lost to time, or perhaps from realms beyond our earthly comprehension. Tonight we examine one such enigma, a metallic sphere discovered in the small Colombian town of Buga, an object that may hold the key to unlocking communication with intelligences far beyond our world. But what happens when this mysterious artifact begins to respond to the very sounds that have echoed through sacred temples for millennia?
A sound wave emitter. We're going to emit from 20 to 60 hertz to 20,000 hertz. Here the equipment is being adjusted to 0. It doesn't mark a single field. It doesn't mark a single field. It doesn't mark a single field and a single field. And here in my hands right now it only measures frequency, and you can see that it's at 0. You'll see this calmly. There are zeros there. Okay, now, doctor, go ahead. Here it records the scale, the ignition. It records.
But here it
Looks good.
No, it doesn't record it. Okay, it's not emitting it. Okay,
Here it is. Here there is none.
and here there is. Okay,
Well, the test is going to consist of sending a series of tones to the speaker and seeing if the sphere reacts to any of the tones. Okay, and anyway, we're going to record all the data in the computer. This tone generator is this small device. It's going to allow us to send the audio signal to the speaker that's over there. And finally, we're also going to have this signal in real time through this oscilloscope.
okay,
So we're going to start at 60 hertz and go up to 20 kilohertz. Please keep as quiet as possible. Okay, let's start. As the signal is activated, you can hear from 60 hertz onwards.
What dark knowledge
You'll
does
hear
it
some
possess?
frequencies and others
And
will
why
be
does it
beyond
seem
your
to
hearing
understand
capacity.
the ancient language of the gods themselves?
It goes beyond the natural, human threshold that you can hear.
are you seeing it there on the screen? Yes, there. Is a reaction there? It was at 0 STM.
We are at 190 hertz.
Well,
Our tale begins in July 2025, within the sterile walls of Mexico's prestigious National Polytechnic Institute. Here, a team of scientists prepared to conduct what they believed would be routine acoustic testing on an artifact that had already defied conventional explanation. Little did they know they were about to witness something that would shake the very foundations of their understanding of reality. The sphere, approximately the size of a human head, crafted from an unknown metallic alloy, had been the subject of intense scrutiny. Its surface bore intricate patterns that researchers had identified as a Sri Yantra, an ancient Hindu sacred geometry symbol representing the cosmos itself. But this was no mere archaeological curiosity. This sphere had already demonstrated properties that bordered on the supernatural. Dr. Cesar Ulises Solis Cervantes, a scientist with a doctorate in automatic control systems, had agreed to participate in what he thought would be a straightforward frequency response test. Armed with tone generators capable of producing sounds from 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz, the team intended to map the sphere's acoustic properties. They had no idea they were about to open a door to something far more mysterious. But here, in the darkened corners of scientific inquiry, we must ask ourselves, was this truly the first time human voices had called out to beings from beyond? Throughout history, civilizations across the globe have used sound, chant, and sacred vibration to commune with higher powers. The Tibetan monks with their resonant bowls, the Aboriginal didgeridoo players calling to the dreamtime, the ancient Egyptian priests whose chants allegedly moved massive stone blocks through sonic levitation. Could it be that these ancient practices were not mere spiritual exercises, but actual technologies of communication with extraterrestrial intelligences? And if so, what does it mean that a modern artifact, this sphere from Buga, responds to the same primordial sounds? The initial tests began with clinical precision. The researchers calibrated their instruments, ensuring that all readings showed zero baseline measurements. The sphere sat silent, inert, apparently nothing more than an unusual paperweight. But as the frequency generators began their systematic sweep from 60 Hz upward, something extraordinary occurred. At 190 Hz, the instruments suddenly sparked to life. The sphere, which had shown no electromagnetic signature moments before, began registering on every sensor in the room. Temperature readings fluctuated. Electromagnetic field detectors that had been reading zero suddenly showed activity. The sphere was not merely responding to the acoustic stimulation, it was generating its own energetic responses. But what force could cause an apparently inert object to suddenly surge with energy at specific frequencies? In the shadow-haunted halls of ancient knowledge, we find disturbing parallels. The frequency of 190 Hz falls within what acoustics experts call the fear frequency, a range that can induce feelings of dread and supernatural presence in humans. Some researchers believe this frequency range can open doorways between dimensions. Was the sphere beginning to awaken something that had been dormant? Or was it responding to a signal that had been calling to it across the vast emptiness of space, waiting for the precise acoustic key to unlock its secrets? As the scientists continued their frequency sweep, moving into the 200 to 300 Hz range, the sphere's responses became more pronounced. Every instrument in the room confirmed what their eyes could hardly believe. This object was not passive. It was reactive, intelligent, and apparently waiting for the right stimulus to reveal its true nature. Dr. Solis would later describe his amazement at the consistency of the readings. This was no equipment malfunction, no external interference. The sphere was generating measurable electromagnetic fields, thermal variations, and resonant responses that followed predictable patterns. It was behaving like a sophisticated piece of technology, but technology based on principles unknown to human science. But the most unsettling revelation was yet to come. For among the research team was Laura Bedoya, a woman versed in the ancient sacred arts of Hindu mantras. She had studied the sphere's surface patterns and recognized them as more than mere decoration. The Sri Yantra carved into the sphere's surface was a map, a sonic map that might reveal how to properly communicate with whatever intelligence resided within or controlled this artifact. The Sri Yantra, dear listeners, is not merely a pretty pattern. According to ancient Hindu texts, it represents the very structure of creation itself, the intersection of divine, masculine and feminine energies that give birth to all existence. But more relevant to our tale, each line and intersection of the Sri Yantra corresponds to specific sound frequencies, specific sacred syllables that, when properly intoned, can allegedly open channels of communication with higher dimensional beings.
Uragaram Karunavataram Samsarasaram Bhujagendraharam Sada Vasantam Hidriyaravinde Vavam Vamami Sahitam Namami Om Bhuvasvaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Vargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yoma Prachodayat.
Could it be that this sphere was left behind by intelligences who understood that human beings would eventually rediscover these ancient acoustic keys? Was the Sri Yantra pattern a deliberate clue, a cosmic breadcrumb trail leading us toward contact? When Laura Bedoya began to chant the sacred mantras associated with the Sri Yantra, the laboratory instruments registered responses that left the scientific team stunned. The electromagnetic readings spiked dramatically. The sphere's temperature increased. Most remarkably, the instrument showed what could only be described as a conversation pattern, periods of high activity during the chanting, followed by continued resonance after Laura's voice fell silent, as if the sphere was responding in kind. Om Mani Padme Hum. These ancient syllables, meaning the jewel in the lotus, seemed to trigger the sphere's most dramatic responses. This particular mantra, cherished by Tibetan Buddhists for over 1,000 years, is said to invoke the compassion of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva of infinite compassion. But in the context of the sphere's response, we must ask darker questions. Why would an extraterrestrial artifact respond to human religious practices? Unless these practices were never entirely human to begin with. Throughout the darkened corridors of ancient texts, we find disturbing hints that the gods who taught humanity these sacred sounds were not gods at all, but visitors from distant stars. The Vedic texts speak of Vimanas, flying vehicles of the gods. The Sumerian tablets describe the Anunnaki descending from the heavens. The Aboriginal Dreamtime stories tell of sky beings who taught the first humans the sacred songs. Could it be that these ancient mantras were actually technological activation codes taught to humanity by extraterrestrial visitors who knew that someday artifacts like the Buga Sphere would need to be reactivated? As Laura continued her sacred chanting, the sphere's responses became more sophisticated. The scientists observed that the electromagnetic readings didn't just spike randomly. They showed patterns, rhythms, almost like a language. Dr. Garrido noted that the sphere seemed to listen during the chanting, then respond with its own electromagnetic pulses after each mantra concluded. It was like gratitude, one researcher observed. The sphere appeared to be acknowledging the mantras, perhaps even expressing appreciation for this long-awaited contact. But gratitude from whom? What intelligence lurked within this metallic shell, waiting eons for the proper acoustic key to unlock its voice? The temperature readings added another layer of mystery. While the ambient room temperature remained constant, the sphere's surface temperature rose measurably during and after the mantra sessions. This was not merely electromagnetic activity. The sphere was generating thermal energy through unknown means. In the realm of theoretical physics, such spontaneous heat generation suggests either nuclear reactions or the manipulation of zero-point energy fields. But perhaps most disturbing of all were the gravitational measurements. Throughout the acoustic testing, sensitive scales monitored the sphere's weight, watching for any anomalous changes. While most readings remained constant, there were momentary fluctuations that suggested the sphere's mass was somehow variable. A physical impossibility according to conventional physics, unless the sphere was capable of manipulating its own density or accessing extra-dimensional space. In the shadow-haunted archives of suppressed science, we find whispers of similar phenomena. The Philadelphia experiment of 1943, where a US Navy destroyer allegedly vanished from our dimension. The Montauk Project, with its claims of time manipulation through resonant frequencies. The ancient Egyptian pyramids, whose internal chambers resonate at frequencies that can induce altered states of consciousness. All of these mysteries share a common thread: the use of specific frequencies to access realms beyond normal reality. And now, in a laboratory in Mexico, modern science had stumbled upon an artifact that responded to the same acoustic principles used by ancient priests and modern black projects alike. Dr. Solis later admitted that the experience left him in shock. Here was a man of science, trained in rational analysis and empirical methodology, forced to confront evidence that challenged everything he thought he knew about the universe. The sphere had responded to ancient mantras with measurable, repeatable phenomena that defied conventional explanation. But what message was the sphere trying to convey? As Laura concluded her mantras with expressions of gratitude, the electromagnetic readings spiked to their highest levels. The sphere seemed to be acknowledging her thanks, responding with what could only be interpreted as its own form of appreciation. This suggested not just intelligence, but emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize and respond to human sentiment. The implications are staggering. If the sphere can recognize and respond to human emotions, what else might it understand? Our thoughts, our intentions, our fears? And if it can communicate through electromagnetic pulses, might it also be transmitting information we're not yet sophisticated enough to decode? Several researchers noted that the sphere's electromagnetic responses seem to follow linguistic patterns. Pauses, inflections, rhythmic variations that resembled the cadence of spoken language. Could the sphere be attempting to speak to us in its own electromagnetic tongue, while we remain deaf to its alien syntax? In the crypts of ancient wisdom, we find references to the language of light, communication through pure energy rather than sound or symbol. The Hindu concept of spanda describes the divine vibration that underlies all creation. The Kabbalistic notion of the Word of God that spoke the universe into existence. The Hermetic axiom, as above, so below, suggesting that cosmic forces operate on multiple frequencies simultaneously. Could it be that the sphere represents technology so advanced that it communicates through the fundamental frequencies of reality itself? And if so, what happens when such technology falls into the hands of a species still struggling to understand its own nature? The research team's excitement was tempered by an undercurrent of unease. They had proven that the sphere was not just an artifact, it was an active technology. But active technology serving what purpose? And controlled by whom? Dr. Garrido spoke of plans for further experimentation, including attempts to increase the sphere's internal energy to provoke stronger responses. But in the shadow-haunted realm of the unknown, such experiments carry profound risks. What happens when we succeed in fully activating a technology we don't understand, created by intelligences whose motives remain hidden? History is littered with the remains of civilizations that uncovered powers beyond their comprehension. The destruction of Atlantis, according to Plato, came from their abuse of crystal-based technologies. The biblical destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah has been interpreted by some researchers as the result of misused atomic knowledge. The mysterious vitrification of ancient fortresses across Europe and Asia suggests the deployment of weapons that turned stone to glass, weapons that modern science is only now beginning to understand. Are we, in our hubris, about to repeat these ancient mistakes? The sphere of Buga responds to our mantras, our gratitude, our acoustic inquiries. But what happens when it begins to make demands of its own? The research team documented every aspect of their experiments with meticulous care. Video recordings, audio captures, electromagnetic measurements, thermal readings, all preserved for future analysis. But in the crypts of suppressed knowledge, we know that such documentation often becomes classified, buried in government vaults where it can never threaten the established order. Yet the very existence of this documentation raises troubling questions. If government agencies are monitoring these experiments, and make no mistake, they surely are, what do they know about the sphere's true nature that they're not sharing? What other artifacts have been recovered and studied in secret? And what kind of communication might already be taking place between human authorities and whatever intelligences control these technologies? The sphere's response to Sanskrit mantras suggests a connection to ancient India, but the Sri Yantra symbol appears in cultures worldwide under different names. The Egyptians called it the seed of life. The Celts knew it as the flower of creation. The Maya incorporated similar geometric patterns into their most sacred temples. This suggests either a common human source for these symbols or instruction from a common external source. Could it be that throughout human history, extraterrestrial intelligences have been guiding our spiritual development, embedding acoustic and geometric keys into our religious practices? And if so, are we now approaching the moment when these ancient preparations bear their intended fruit? The mantras that activated the sphere are not mere words. They are vibrational formulas designed to interface with specific technologies. Om Mani Padme Hum may indeed mean the jewel in the lotus, but on a technological level it could represent an activation sequence for dormant extraterrestrial communication devices. Consider the implications. Scattered across Earth may be countless similar artifacts waiting for the proper acoustic triggers to come online. Each religious tradition, each sacred sound practice, each ancient chant may be humanity unknowingly maintaining the activation codes for a vast interstellar communication network. The sphere of Buga may not be an isolated anomaly, but rather one node in a cosmic internet, patiently waiting for humanity to develop the technological sophistication necessary to recognize and activate the network. Our modern instruments can now detect the sphere's responses, but what messages might these artifacts have been receiving and transmitting for centuries beyond the range of human perception? Dr. Solis mentioned the need for additional studies involving nuclear emission detection and particle analysis related to outer space phenomena. This suggests that the sphere's activities may extend beyond electromagnetic and thermal responses into realms of physics that human science has barely begun to explore. In the darkened laboratories of theoretical physics, researchers speak of exotic particles that can exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, tachyons that travel faster than light, quantum entanglement that allows instantaneous communication across cosmic distances, zero-point energy that permeates the vacuum of space itself. Could the sphere be utilizing such exotic physics to maintain contact with its creators? Might every electromagnetic pulse it generates be simultaneously received by similar artifacts on distant worlds, creating a galactic communication network that operates outside the constraints of space and time? Laura Bedoya spoke of being on the verge of tears after witnessing the sphere's responses to her mantras. This emotional reaction may be more significant than it initially appears. If the sphere can recognize and respond to human gratitude, it may also be capable of influencing human emotions through subtle, energetic manipulation. Ancient texts speak of divine artifacts that could inspire awe, fear, devotion, or enlightenment in those who encountered them. The Ark of the Covenant allegedly struck down those who touched it improperly. The oracle at Delphi induced prophetic trances through vapors emanating from sacred stones. The standing stones of ancient Europe were said to cure ailments or drive visitors mad, depending on the phase of the moon. Could these legends describe encounters with similar extraterrestrial technologies? Artifacts designed not just to communicate, but to influence human consciousness directly? The researchers noted that the sphere seemed to listen during the mantras and respond afterward, creating what appeared to be a genuine dialogue. But in the shadow-haunted realm of consciousness manipulation, we must ask, was the sphere truly responding to the mantras, or was it subtly influencing the researchers to interpret its random emissions as meaningful communication? Advanced civilizations capable of interstellar travel would certainly possess sophisticated understanding of consciousness and perception. They might embed psychological triggers into their artifacts, designed to create the illusion of communication while actually programming human behavior toward desired outcomes. Consider the research team's unanimous enthusiasm for continuing their experiments, their eagerness to increase the sphere's internal energy and provoke stronger responses. Are these genuinely scientific impulses, or has the sphere already begun to influence their thoughts, drawing them deeper into whatever agenda it serves? The sphere's thermal responses raise additional concerns. Heat generation in an apparently solid object suggests either nuclear processes or the conversion of exotic energy forms. In either case, the researchers may be unknowingly exposing themselves to radiation or other harmful emissions that won't manifest their effects for years or decades. The history of contact with advanced technologies is often written in the casualties of those who encountered them first. Marie Curie died from radiation exposure while pioneering radioactive research. The scientists of the Manhattan Project suffered cancers and genetic damage from their work with atomic materials. What price might the researchers of the Buga Sphere ultimately pay for their breakthrough discoveries? But perhaps most disturbing of all is the sphere's apparent preference for ancient Hindu mantras over other acoustic stimuli. Why these specific sounds? What is it about Sanskrit syllables that triggers such strong responses? The answer may lie in the acoustic properties of Sanskrit itself. Linguistic researchers have discovered that Sanskrit possesses unique vibrational characteristics. When properly pronounced, Sanskrit syllables create sound wave patterns that resonate at frequencies matching various human brain states. Specific mantras can induce meditation, heightened awareness, or even altered states of consciousness. But what if Sanskrit's acoustic properties were not accidentally discovered by ancient Hindu scholars? What if this language was specifically designed by extraterrestrial intelligences as an interface protocol for their technologies? The implications extend far beyond the Buga Sphere. If Sanskrit represents an alien programming language disguised as human religion, then every Hindu temple, every meditation session, every chanted mantra may be unknowingly activating dormant extraterrestrial technologies scattered across our planet. Consider the mathematics embedded in Sanskrit grammar, the precision of its phonetic rules, the systematic organization of its syllables. These characteristics mirror the structure of computer programming languages far more than the organic evolution of human speech. Panini's ancient grammar of Sanskrit, dating to the 4th century BCE, is so mathematically sophisticated that modern computer scientists have used it as a foundation for artificial intelligence research. How could a human scholar from 2,500 years ago develop linguistic rules that anticipate the needs of digital technology? Unless, of course, Panini was not working from human inspiration alone. The Vedic traditions speak openly of divine revelation, of knowledge received directly from the gods. But in the crypts of ancient astronaut theory, those gods begin to look suspiciously like visitors from distant stars. The research team's plan to give the sphere an impulse to increase its energy output represents a critical escalation. They are preparing to move from passive observation to active stimulation, potentially triggering responses that could fundamentally change the nature of their relationship with this artifact. In the darkened annals of forbidden experiments, such escalations rarely end well. The scientists at CERN who first collided particles at near-light speeds couldn't predict the discovery of the Higgs boson. The researchers at Los Alamos couldn't foresee the full implications of nuclear fission. The team working with the Buga Sphere may be about to cross a threshold from which there is no return. What happens when the sphere receives enough energy to fully activate? Will it simply provide clearer communication, or will it begin to exert more direct influence over its environment, over the researchers themselves? The sphere's demonstrated ability to generate electromagnetic fields suggests it could potentially interfere with electronic devices, communication systems, even human neural activity. A fully activated sphere might be capable of much more than conversation. Dr. Garrido's observation that the sphere seemed to express gratitude for the mantras reveals another troubling dimension. Gratitude implies expectation. If the sphere is grateful for acoustic activation, what does it expect in return? What obligations might the researchers be unknowingly accepting through their interactions? In folklore traditions worldwide, contact with supernatural entities often involves implicit contracts. The fairy folk of Celtic tradition demanded payment for their services. The jinn of Arabian mythology granted wishes at hidden costs. The angels and demons of Judeo-Christian tradition required worship or souls in exchange for their interventions. Could the sphere represent a similar dynamic on a technological level? By activating it with mantras and expressing gratitude for its responses, are the researchers entering into some form of agreement with its controllers? The sphere's apparent consciousness raises the most fundamental question of all. What kind of intelligence are we dealing with? Is it an artificial intelligence, a biological entity, or something beyond either category? The response patterns suggest not just intelligence, but personality, preferences, emotions, social awareness. If the sphere contains or channels a living consciousness, then the ethical implications of the experiments become staggering. Are the researchers studying an artifact, or are they interrogating a prisoner? And if the sphere represents a conscious entity, what rights does it possess? What revenge might it seek if it feels mistreated? The ancient Hindu concept of karma suggests that all actions generate consequences that must eventually be balanced. If the sphere operates according to such principles, then every interaction with it creates debts that must ultimately be paid. As our tale draws toward its conclusion, we are left with more questions than answers. The sphere of Buga has demonstrated that it is far more than an inert artifact. It possesses technology that can generate electromagnetic fields, thermal energy, and gravitational anomalies through acoustic stimulation. It responds to ancient Sanskrit mantras with patterns that suggest genuine intelligence and emotional awareness. But intelligence serving what purpose? Emotional awareness directed toward what goals? The sphere may be grateful for activation, but gratitude can quickly turn to expectation, and expectation to demand. The researchers plan to continue their experiments, to push the sphere toward full activation, to unlock whatever secrets it contains. But in the crypts of cosmic horror, some doors are meant to remain closed. Some technologies are too dangerous for human comprehension. Some communications should never be answered. Yet the die has been cast, the sphere has been awakened. It knows that humanity has progressed to the point where it can detect and interpret its responses. The ancient network of extraterrestrial artifacts may be coming online across our planet, and we may have no choice but to participate in whatever cosmic agenda they serve. In the darkened chambers of the future, perhaps other researchers in other laboratories are making similar discoveries. Perhaps the sphere of Buga is not alone. Perhaps humanity is about to discover that we have never been alone at all. The mantras have been sung. The sphere has responded. The door between worlds stands ajar. What emerges from that darkness may determine the fate of our species for generations to come. This has been another journey into the Darkened Crypt. I am your host, Mr. Cornell, reminding you that in the shadows between science and mystery, between the known and the unknowable, truth often wears the mask of impossibility. Sleep well if you can, for in the silence of the night, electromagnetic signals continue to pulse through the darkness, carrying messages we are only beginning to comprehend. And somewhere in a laboratory in Mexico, a sphere waits patiently for the next chapter in humanity's cosmic awakening to unfold. Om Mani Padme Hum.